You are not stuck because heaven is silent. You are stuck because parts of you are still negotiating with the very chains you prayed to break. The blessing has already been spoken over your life, but internal resistance can be louder than divine instruction. Fear has a way of disguising itself as wisdom. It tells you to wait, to shrink, to stay where things are predictable. But fear is not protecting you. It is preserving a smaller version of your life. Every time you choose safety over calling, you reinforce the illusion that the wall is external, when in reality, it is built from thoughts you keep agreeing with. The miracle you're asking for requires a new agreement with truth, not with the old narratives that say you are unqualified or late or incapable. Old thinking is comfortable because it is familiar, even when it is painful. The mind will choose a known struggle over an unknown freedom if you let it. That is why transformation feels disruptive. When God leads you into a new season, He confronts the beliefs that survived your past. You learn to think small to survive disappointment. You learn to expect less to avoid heartbreak. You learn to hold back so rejection would hurt less. Those strategies may have protected you once, but they cannot carry you where you're going. A blessing cannot fully land in a life built around emotional self-defense. Expansion requires vulnerability. It requires the courage to believe again without guarantees. Comparison adds another layer to the blockage. You start measuring your beginnings against someone else's middle and calling your journey a failure. The moment comparison enters, clarity leaves. Instead of cultivating what has been placed in your hands, you obsess over what is in theirs. Envy does not just steal joy, it fractures focus, and a divided focus weakens faith. The blessing attached to your identity demands your attention. It grows where it is nurtured. When you constantly look sideways, you neglect the soil beneath your own feet. God is not asking you to outrun anyone. He is asking you to become fully present in the assignment that was crafted specifically for you. Unforgiveness is often the quietest block because it hides behind justification. You replay the offense, rehearse the pain, and convince yourself that holding on is strength. But every memory you grip tightly continues to grip you back. Bitterness consumes energy that was meant for building. You cannot construct a future while emotionally living in a courtroom of the past. Forgiveness is not about pretending the wound didn't matter. It is about deciding it will not master you. When you release the debt, you release yourself. Space opens inside you, and in that space, new peace can breathe. Blessings need room to land, and a crowded heart has nowhere to place them. There is also the subtle addiction to familiar identity. Even pain can become part of how you define yourself. If you have always been the overlooked one, the struggling one, the one who almost made it, stepping into favor can feel disorienting. Growth threatens the identity you built around survival. So you sabotage quietly, you delay decisions, you question opportunities, you downplay your gifts, not because you want failure, but because success demands a reintroduction to yourself. God's blessing often arrives with an invitation to see who you are beyond your wounds. Accepting that invitation requires grieving the old story, even if it was a painful one, because it was at least predictable. The internal shift begins when you stop asking whether you deserve the blessing and start asking whether you are willing to grow into it. Worthiness is settled by grace. Readiness is shaped by participation. Every moment you challenge a limiting thought, you weaken the block. Every act of forgiveness loosens another stone. Every decision to focus on your lane instead of someone else's clears more of the path. Transformation is not a lightning strike. It is a series of agreements with truth repeated until they become your default posture. As your inner world aligns with what God has spoken, resistance loses its authority, and what once felt unreachable starts to feel inevitable, not because circumstances suddenly change, but because you are no longer fighting the very expansion you once begged for, and are finally standing in a posture that can receive without flinching, and move without apologizing, and believe without shrinking back into the safety of the person you used to be, while the new capacity forming inside you continues stretching your expectations beyond the borders you once defended and into a landscape where blessing no longer feels foreign but fitting. And you begin to recognize that the door was never locked from the outside, and every step forward has been waiting on your willingness to outgrow the fears that taught you to stay small and call it wisdom, while something greater kept calling you to rise beyond them and keep moving. Faith is not proven in what you say you believe. It is revealed in what you are willing to do next. Many people confuse desire with devotion. You can deeply want change and still resist the actions that create it. The tension you feel is the space where responsibility is calling your name. God's promises are invitations into partnership, not substitutes for participation. You are not asked to earn the blessing, but you are asked to walk toward it. Movement is the language of trust. Every step you take in obedience declares that you believe what you cannot yet see more than what you currently feel. Old habits fight hardest when a new season is near. They whisper that consistency is too hard, that discipline is too restrictive, that effort means something is wrong, but effort is often the evidence that something is right. Muscles grow through resistance, not comfort. Character forms under pressure, not ease. When you pray for elevation, you are also praying for the strength to carry it. That strength is built in daily choices that look ordinary but shape extraordinary outcomes. Waking up when you want to quit, practicing when no one applauds, preparing when results are invisible. These moments are not delays. They are construction sites where your future capacity is being built. The need for certainty is one of the greatest enemies of spiritual momentum. You want confirmation before commitment, clarity before courage. But faith does not remove uncertainty. It moves in spite of it. Waiting for perfect conditions is a sophisticated form of avoidance. There will always be variables you cannot control. If your obedience depends on guarantees, you will remain parked at the edge of possibility. Trust grows when you act without full assurance and discover that you are carried anyway. Each step into the unknown teaches you that stability is not found in circumstances, but in the one who leads you through them. Responsibility is not punishment, it is empowerment. It shifts you from passive observer to active participant in your own becoming. When you accept responsibility, you stop blaming timing, people, or luck for stagnation. You begin asking better questions. Instead of, why is this happening to me? You ask, what is this shaping in me? That question unlocks growth. It turns obstacles into instructors. Every challenge becomes material for maturity. The blessing you seek is not blocked by hardship. It is often hidden within the skills and endurance hardship produces. There is also a sacred rhythm between grace and effort. Grace opens the door, effort walks through it. Some people lean so heavily on grace that they excuse stagnation. Others lean so heavily on effort that they forget dependence. True progress lives in the tension between the two. You work as if your actions matter while trusting as if the outcome rests in God's hands. This balance protects you from pride when things succeed and despair when they struggle. It keeps you moving without believing you are moving alone. Hesitation usually sounds reasonable. It says you will start tomorrow, when you feel more confident, when resources increase, when fear disappears. But confidence is born from action, not the other way around. Resources often appear in motion, not in waiting. Fear rarely vanishes before obedience. It fades during it. Delay feels safe, but it slowly erodes belief in your own ability to respond. Every postponed step strengthens the habit of postponement. Momentum once lost is harder to recover than it was to maintain. That is why small acts of courage matter. They keep the engine running. Growth demands friction with your current limits. You cannot expand without confronting the edges of your comfort. Each time you choose responsibility over excuse, you stretch those edges. What once intimidated you becomes normal. What once felt impossible becomes routine. This is how identity evolves. You stop seeing yourself as someone trying and start seeing yourself as someone becoming. The blessing is not just a reward at the finish line, it is the transformation occurring while you run. Every disciplined choice, every uncertain step, every act of trust is rewiring your instincts toward resilience and focus and endurance. Shaping a version of you that no longer waits for perfect conditions but creates progress in imperfect ones and keeps moving with steady determination even when emotions fluctuate. Because you understand that feelings are weather, but commitment is climate, and you are building a climate of faith-driven action that sustains motion long after motivation fades and carries you forward with a quiet strength that does not depend on applause or immediate results, but on the deep certainty that movement itself is evidence of trust and responsibility. Embraced is the pathway through which the life you prayed for gradually becomes the life you. Our living alignment is not a dramatic moment. It is a quiet series of decisions repeated until they shape your nature. You don't wake up one day perfectly synchronized with purpose. You build alignment the way a path is formed in a field, by walking it daily. Every small choice either pulls you closer to what God is speaking or drifts you further into noise. The challenge is that misalignment rarely announces itself loudly. It hides in subtle compromises, in words spoken carelessly, in reactions that contradict the faith you claim to carry. The blessing is not allergic to imperfection, but it does respond to direction. If your life is pointed toward trust, even your stumbles move you forward. Your mindset is the first territory alignment must conquer. Thoughts are architects. They design the emotional structures you live inside. If your inner dialogue is filled with limitation, you will decorate your future with doubt before you ever arrive there. Renewing your mind is not positive thinking. It is disciplined thinking. It is catching a thought that shrinks you and refusing to let it sit unchallenged. It is replacing assumptions of failure with rea. Rassles of possibility. This is daily work. Your brain will try to recycle old scripts because they are efficient. Alignment requires intentional editing. You become the editor of your internal language, cutting scenes that no longer serve the story you are stepping into. Words extend mindset into the physical world. What you speak consistently becomes the emotional climate you inhabit. Complaints fog vision. Gratitude sharpens it. When you narrate your life as cursed, heavy, and hopeless, your nervous system listens. Your body reacts as if the story is fact. But when you speak with expectancy, even before evidence appears, you create space for courage. This is not denial of difficulty. It is refusal to crown difficulty as authority. Alignment means your mouth does not sabotage what your prayers are building. You talk in the direction you are walking. You let your voice become reinforcement instead of resistance. Reactions reveal alignment under pressure. Anyone can sound faithful in calm moments. Alignment is tested when plans collapse, when people disappoint, when progress slows. Your instinctive reaction exposes your deepest training. That is why daily choices matter. Every time you pause before responding in anger, you are rehearsing patience. Every time you choose understanding over pride, you strengthen humility. These micro decisions are spiritual repetitions, like lifting weight that increases unseen strength. Over time, what once required effort becomes instinct. You begin responding from alignment instead of scrambling to recover from impulse. Consistency feels unimpressive while you are inside it. There are no fireworks attached to choosing integrity when no one is watching. No applause for keeping promises to yourself. But consistency compounds. A single aligned decision may look small, yet hundreds of them form a structure strong enough to carry massive blessing. The life you admire in others is usually built on habits that looked boring in the beginning. Alignment is rarely glamorous. It is faithful in private long before it becomes visible in public. There will be days when alignment feels fragile, when emotions argue louder than conviction. In those moments, you simplify. You return to the next right choice instead of solving your entire future. Alignment is not maintained by grand gestures, but by immediate obedience. What is the honest word you need to speak now? What is the disciplined action in front of you? What is the forgiving posture required in this interaction? When you shrink alignment down to the present step, it becomes manageable. You stop being overwhelmed by the distance ahead and focus on the ground beneath your feet. As these daily choices accumulate, your identity begins to stabilize. You are no longer negotiating who you are in every situation. There is a through line in your behavior, a recognizable pattern of trust, integrity, and expectancy. That stability attracts responsibility because it proves you can carry weight without collapsing. The blessing flows toward containers that hold shape. Alignment forms that shape slowly, reinforcing it decision by decision, until your life starts to feel less like a series of reactions and more like a deliberate expression of belief in motion. And you notice that what once required constant effort now feels natural, and what once tempted you to drift no longer has the same gravity, and the rhythm of aligned living begins to carry you forward with a steady momentum that does not depend on mood or applause, but on the quiet certainty that each small faithful choice is stitching your present to the future you prayed for and drawing you further into a life that reflects trust in ways so practical and repeated that alignment stops feeling like a task and starts feeling like home, and you continue walking inside it without needing a finish line in sight, because the walking itself has become the evidence that you are already inside the promise and still moving deeper into it with every ordinary decision that keeps pointing your heart and mind in the same direction and teaching you to remain there even when distractions call and pressures rise and the path narrows, and you keep choosing it again and again and again as the shape of your life keeps forming around those choices and remains open to the next step that is already waiting just ahead of you and pulling you forward into more than you can currently describe, but are steadily growing into growth. Often accelerates the moment you stop romanticizing arrival and start respecting process. Many people are in love with outcomes, but impatient with development. You want the strength without the strain, the platform without the preparation, the visibility without the inner stability that sustains it. But process is not a hallway you rush through. It is a workshop where your foundation is reinforced. If God handed you the full weight of what you asked for without the internal architecture to support it, success would collapse into pressure. The slow seasons are not empty, they are structural. Every delay that frustrates you may be reinforcing beams you cannot see. There is a hidden discipline in staying present while becoming. Your mind tries to live ahead of your body. You rehearse future victories or future disasters and neglect the assignment in your hands. But power lives in attention. When you scatter your focus across imaginary tomorrows, today weakens. Excellence is always built in the current moment. The email you answer with care, the conversation you handle with patience, the small responsibility you complete with integrity, these are not distractions from destiny. They are. It's raw materials. The future is manufactured out of ordinary faithfulness repeated long enough to become character. Impatience creates unnecessary suffering because it turns preparation into punishment. You interpret unfinished progress as failure instead of formation. But becoming is layered. Each layer teaches something the next one requires. Humility prepares you for influence. Endurance prepares you for longevity. Discipline prepares you for freedom. When you try to skip layers, you don't accelerate growth, you destabilize it. What looks like slowness is often precision. A builder who rushes the base endangers the entire structure. In the same way, careful development protects the life you are stepping into. There is also courage in anonymity. Seasons where no one is applauding you refine motivation. You discover whether you love the work or just the recognition. Hidden effort purifies intention. When you keep showing up without external reward, your identity detaches from approval. That detachment is freedom. It allows you to act from conviction instead of performance. Many people sabotage their calling by chasing visibility too early. Exposure amplifies whatever already exists inside you. If insecurity is still driving, visibility magnifies fear. If pride is still unchecked, visibility magnifies ego. Privacy is often mercy in disguise, giving you space to stabilize before the spotlight arrives. Another overlooked part of process is repetition. Repetition feels boring to the ego because it craves novelty, but mastery is built through returning to the same fundamentals with deeper awareness. Athletes drill basics, musicians rehearse scales, builders measure twice. In spiritual growth, repetition looks like choosing patience again in a familiar irritation, choosing honesty in another tempting shortcut, choosing trust in a recurring uncertainty. These loops are not evidence you are stuck. They are opportunities to respond differently than before. Each improved response rewires instinct. Over time, the struggle that once dominated you becomes a skill you carry effortlessly. You must also allow room for rest within process. Rest is not regression, it is integration. Without rest, effort becomes frantic and loses clarity. Pausing allows lessons to settle. It gives perspective space to widen. When you refuse rest, you confuse motion with progress and exhaustion with dedication. Sustainable growth respects rhythm. There are moments to push and moments to breathe. Wisdom is knowing the difference. Rest renews sensitivity so you can hear direction instead of running on autopilot. Process matures your relationship with uncertainty. Early on, uncertainty feels like threat. Later, it becomes terrain you know how to walk. You stop demanding constant reassurance and start trusting your ability to adapt. That confidence is not arrogance. It is familiarity with resilience. You have survived enough unknowns to recognize your capacity to navigate another. Each completed season becomes evidence that you can endure the next. Memory becomes fuel. You carry proof inside you. Eventually, you realize that arrival is not a single destination, but a pattern of living. Every time you commit to the work in front of you, you are arriving. Every time you honor the process instead of resisting it, you are already inside the life you wanted to reach. The distance between where you are and where you want to be shrinks not in dramatic leaps, but in steady, almost invisible increments. And those increments accumulate into transformation so gradual you hardly notice it day to day, yet undeniable when you look back and see how your patience has thickened and your focus has sharpened and your reactions have softened and your endurance has stretched beyond what you once believed possible, and the person walking now carries a depth that could not have been rushed into existence, but had to be layered through time and repetition and hidden effort until process itself stopped feeling like an obstacle and started feeling like partnership, and you continue stepping into it with a quiet respect for its pace. Understanding that every measured step is shaping a life strong enough to hold what is still unfolding ahead of you. And you keep moving within that rhythm without demanding shortcuts because you finally trust what's steady. Becoming is building inside you. Momentum is fragile at the beginning, which is why persistence matters more than intensity. Many people start strong and disappear quietly because they rely on emotion to carry a commitment that requires decision. Motivation is a spark, but persistence is the engine. Sparks are exciting, engines are reliable. When the excitement fades, you discover what was truly driving you. If your movement depended only on feeling inspired, you will stall the moment inspiration dips. Persistence chooses action even when emotion is neutral. It is the quiet agreement you make with yourself to continue showing up, especially when the results are not yet visible. There is a misunderstanding that progress should always feel rewarding. In reality, much of growth feels repetitive and unrewarded in the moment. You plant seeds without applause. You water habits that no one sees. You invest effort into areas that look unchanged for longer than you expected. This is where most people stop, not because they are incapable, but because they misinterpret silence as failure. Seeds grow underground before they break the surface. Lack of visible movement does not equal lack of activity. Some of the most important transformation is hidden, forming roots strong enough to support what will eventually rise. Persist. Hence trains your relationship with discomfort. At first, discomfort feels like a stop sign. Your instincts tell you to retreat, to return to what is easy and familiar. But when you persist, discomfort becomes information instead of instruction. You learn to ask what it is teaching rather than obeying it blindly. Every time you continue despite friction, you expand your tolerance for effort. Tasks that once drained you begin to feel manageable. Your capacity increases quietly. You are not becoming numb, you are becoming strong. Strength is not the absence of resistance. It is the ability to function within it without collapsing. Consistency builds trust with yourself. Each promise you keep reinforces identity. You start seeing yourself as someone who follows through. That self-trust is powerful. It removes internal negotiation. Instead of debating whether you will act, you assume you will. The decision is already made. Energy that was once wasted on argument becomes available for execution. This is why small commitments matter. They are practice fields for integrity. When you prove reliability in minor things, you prepare yourself to carry major responsibilities without panic. There will be moments when persistence feels lonely. Growth paths often separate you from environments that celebrate comfort. Not everyone will understand why you keep going when the reward is delayed. Some will project their own fatigue onto you. They will call your persistence unnecessary or obsessive because your discipline exposes their excuses. You cannot build your rhythm on their approval. External validation is inconsistent. If you wait for it to align with your effort, your pace will constantly fluctuate. Persistence anchors itself internally. It answers to conviction, not commentary. Another layer of persistence is adaptability. Continuing does not mean repeating the same mistake stubbornly. It means adjusting strategy while protecting commitment. If a method fails, you refine it. If a door closes, you search for another entry point. Persistence is flexible in approach, but firm in direction. It refuses to confuse a blocked path with a blocked future. Every obstacle becomes a problem to solve, not a verdict on your potential. This mindset keeps momentum alive because it transforms setbacks into navigation rather than termination. Fatigue will visit you. Even the most disciplined person experiences stretches where energy feels thin. The key is learning the difference between quitting and recovering. Persistence is not reckless self-exhaustion. It includes wisdom about pacing. Sometimes the bravest act is not pushing harder, but pausing intentionally so you can return stronger. Recovery protects longevity. Without it, intensity burns you out and interrupts the very progress you were trying to accelerate. Sustainable persistence respects the body and mind as partners in the journey. Over time, persistence reshapes your expectations. You stop looking for quick wins and start valuing steady accumulation. Patience stretches. You become less impressed by sudden bursts and more committed to durable habits. This shift stabilizes your emotional world. Highs and lows still come, but they no longer dictate your direction. You continue working through both. That steadiness is rare and powerful. It separates those who wish from those who build. Eventually, the results appear, often more gradually than dramatically. You notice skills that once felt impossible now operate naturally. You notice endurance where you once quit. You notice clarity where confusion used to dominate. These changes are evidence of accumulated persistence doing its work beneath the surface. For longer than you realized, layering strength over doubt and discipline over distraction until the structure of your life begins reflecting the effort you repeated in private, and the momentum that once felt fragile now carries its own weight and moves you forward with a confidence that is not loud but grounded, not rushed but steady. And you continue walking inside that rhythm, understanding that the true reward of persistence is not just the outcomes it produces, but the person it forms. Someone who no longer depends on temporary emotion to sustain permanent commitment and keeps advancing with a quiet certainty that progress belongs to those willing to stay when staying is no longer exciting but still necessary and deeply worth it. Endurance is the bridge between intention and fulfillment. Many people have sincere intentions, powerful visions, and emotional beginnings, but endurance is what carries a dream across time. Without endurance, every obstacle feels final. With endurance, obstacles become chapters instead of conclusions. Endurance is not loud or dramatic. It is the quiet refusal to interpret difficulty as a signal to stop. It is the steady belief that progress can exist even when it is slow, invisible, or misunderstood. This quality is built in moments when quitting would be easy and justified, yet you remain. Pressure is one of endurance's greatest teachers. Under pressure, your priorities become clear. You discover what truly matters because only what matters survives sustained strain. Many distractions fall away when life tightens. What remains is your core commitment. pressure does not invent your character, it reveals it. If you run from every tense moment, you never get to meet the stronger version of yourself waiting on the other side of strain. Endurance invites you to stay long enough to be introduced to your deeper capacity. There is a misconception on that strong people feel less pain. In truth, strong people feel deeply but have learned how to carry discomfort without surrendering direction. They do not deny fatigue or fear. They refuse to crown those feelings as decision makers. Emotional honesty and forward motion can exist together. You can admit that the journey is heavy and still choose to continue walking. This balance prevents endurance from turning into emotional suppression. It becomes resilience instead of numbness. Time is an essential ingredient in endurance. Modern culture celebrates speed, but meaningful transformation respects duration. Some lessons cannot be rushed because they require repetition to become instinct. Endurance stretches your relationship with time. You stop demanding immediate proof and start trusting long arcs. This shift reduces panic. When progress takes longer than expected, you do not assume failure. You interpret delay as part of development. That interpretation protects your energy. Instead of wasting strength on frustration, you invest it in continuation. While the journey is personal, isolation weakens stamina. The presence of even a few supportive voices can multiply strength. Encouragement is not a luxury, it is fuel. Humans are wired for reinforcement. When someone reminds you of your progress or your purpose, they help stabilize your perspective. Endurance grows in environments where honesty and support coexist. You are allowed to admit struggle without surrendering commitment. Shared strength does not dilute personal responsibility, it amplifies it. Another dimension of endurance is meaning. Suffering without meaning feels unbearable. Effort connected to purpose feels different. When you understand why you are enduring, pain becomes contextual instead of chaotic. Meaning organizes struggle. It frames sacrifice as investment. This perspective does not erase hardship, but it prevents hardship from feeling random. You can tolerate more when you see the thread connecting present effort to future impact. Endurance also refines identity. Every season you survive rewrites your self-perception. You stop seeing yourself as fragile. Memory becomes a library of evidence. You remember previous storms and the fact that you outlived them. That memory becomes armor. When a new challenge appears, you are not meeting it empty-handed. You are carrying proof of survival. This accumulated confidence is quiet but powerful. It stabilizes your reactions and reduces the urge to panic. There are moments when endurance feels indistinguishable from standing still. Progress becomes so incremental that doubt whispers that nothing is happening. These are critical points. If you misread stillness as stagnation, you may abandon growth at the edge of breakthrough. Many structures strengthen during periods where visible change is minimal. Foundations cure slowly. Muscles rebuild between workouts. Minds integrate lessons in silence. Trusting these hidden phases is part of mature endurance. Over time, endurance transforms from effort into identity. You no longer think of yourself as someone trying to last. You become someone who lasts. This shift changes how you approach every challenge. Instead of asking whether you can handle it, you assume you will learn how. That assumption is not arrogance. It is trained confidence. It is the product of repeated survival layered into belief. You move forward with a grounded steadiness that does not deny difficulty, but refuses to be defined by it, and keeps stepping through long stretches of uncertainty with a calm rhythm built from experience, memory, and purpose intertwined until endurance feels less like something you are forcing and more like something you are living, a natural extension of who you have become through every season you stayed, adapted, recovered, and continued walking when stopping would have been easier. And that continued walking keeps shaping you into a person whose strength is measured not by the absence of struggle, but by the unwavering decision to remain present, committed, and moving within it.